and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is a preview for the Women's FA Cup final. Manchester United taking on Chelsea. I'm joined by Cerys, who's an expert on the women's football team, a journalist. Of course, you've been on the channel before, you've been on watch-alongs, a regular face. How are you doing, Cerys?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Are you very excited for this one?
Really excited. It's the women's team's third consecutive FA Cup final. Yeah. Obviously, day out at Wembley. I'll be in the press box for the first time, which will be cool. Yeah. But yeah, it should be a really cracking occasion. Obviously, we don't get loads of. We've not had a Wembley trip with the men's this year, so it's nice for me to still have an excuse to get there.
It's a shame, isn't it? Well, just on the women's team then, because I know obviously we all want the women's team to win, but as a bit more of a background for people who haven't necessarily paid attention as much as they should all season, United this season, how's it been going? And obviously we'll get to Chelsea as well, who once again seem to be absolutely destroying everything that they touch in terms of quality. Yeah,
sure. So well is basically the answer for United. So to give people a little bit of context, so United's highest ever finish in the league was 2 seasons ago, finished second, got to the FA Cup final, but lost it against Chelsea. Yeah. Last season was our lowest ever league finish of 5th. Bear in mind the team's only existed since about 2018, 2019.
And we were in the second division for some of that time.
They were second division for their first season, got promoted at the first time of asking. Last year won the FA Cup, which was the first ever major trophy, but slipped to 5th in the league, which was outside Champions League qualifying. So the view basically, it was very similar weirdly to the men's in the sense of the FA Cup was sort of the season saver, but there was a feeling that there was a kind of rebuild needed this year. Champions League qualifying was the main aim, which in the Women's Super League you got to be top 3 to do that. United secured that by drawing with City, which at Old Trafford, which put them out of the qualifying places.
Fantastic. What more could you ask for?
It was a really, really good occasion. Yeah. And now they also beat City in the semi-final to progress to this final at Wembley, which is against Chelsea. So it's been, I think you would count it as a successful season if they can manage to beat Chelsea on Sunday to take home the trophy. It is, I would say, their most successful season.
Great. Well, speaking of Chelsea, let's talk a bit about them. Obviously, they had Emma Hayes leave last year, who was considered one of the best managers in the league. Then it was, is it Sonia Bonpastor that's come in?
Sonia Bonpastor,
who is a sort of, people might recognise her from FIFA, for instance, who's got a hero card on FIFA, but he's obviously a very well-known name in the women's game, has come in, and they've gone unbeaten in the Premier League.
Yeah. In the WSL, yeah. So the scary thing for everyone in women's football is that this was the season where we thought Chelsea might drop off.
It's like Liverpool, isn't it? Klopp leaves and you think, oh great, they'll be fine. The legend manager's left, and then all of a sudden Slot comes in and they're just as good.
Yeah, and they've been really, really impressive again this season. So they won the WSL with, I think, 2 games to go. They did win it against United, which we'll talk a little bit about that game because it was the last time that the two clubs played each other. It wasn't long ago, so it gives you quite a good preview of it. But yeah, they won the WSL, they won the Women's League Cup, so they're looking on Sunday to complete a domestic treble. They've been unbeaten domestically all season. We should mention, though, that their goal has been for some years now to push on from winning the WSL and the amazing success they've had domestically to win in a Women's Champions League, which is something that was only ever done by an English club, by Arsenal, in the early 2000s. So that is a real kind of thorn in Chelsea's side, and it's something that they, again, didn't manage to do this year. But
do we know who's won that yet? Is the final happened?
The final is Arsenal versus Barcelona, in which I think it's fair to say, although Arsenal fans will hate me for this, that Barcelona are heavy favourites. But yeah, Chelsea were knocked out by Barcelona 8-2 on aggregate in the semi-finals, so they can be beaten. But Barca are widely recognised as the best women's team in Europe, if not in the world. So it was pretty exceptional circumstances, but Chelsea are a beatable team.
When you see those Ballon d'Or awards at the end of the year, it always feels like it's just Barcelona. Full of Barcelona players, doesn't it?
They're an exceptional side. They're the blueprint, really, for a women's football team in terms of success. But we don't have to play them yet, fortunately, unless we manage to play them in the Champions League next year.
Exactly. So, in terms of the head-to-head then, you mentioned before about this game that happened that allowed Chelsea to win the league.
Yeah.
How did that go? What were the sort of the strengths, the weaknesses that you think United can exploit? Yeah,
so basically, United and Chelsea have already played twice this season. Both have been 1-0 defeats. First one was to a penalty, and the second one, which was in April, was a header to a set-piece. Now, the first game was a really passive performance from United. They tried to sit back and absorb the pressure and just frustrate Chelsea. And in my view, that did not work.
Right.
And speaking to Mark Skinner, the manager, ahead of the last game against Chelsea, he said, we know that didn't work and we're going to kind of try something different. United went out and really went for it in this latest one, which was just at the end of April. There was obviously added pressure because by the time that game was played, due to results earlier that day, it was known that if Chelsea either drew or won, they would be taking the league title. So it was a difficult game, probably one of the highest pressure ones we've played against them. But United still put in a really strong performance, generated more XG, kind of created, I would say, the better chances. Had a couple of times when I feel like I say this a lot on this channel, the final third finishing just didn't just let us down. That's slightly.
That's absolutely summed up the men's team all season, hasn't it? Yeah.
But even then, right, that was a 1-0 defeat to a header from a corner, and it was one of the very few corners that United had conceded. So it was a game of real kind of fine margins.
Yeah. Sorry to bring it back to the men's team all the time, but that's just my sort of point of reference. It almost reminds me of when we played Arsenal. Like in the league, they beat us with 2 set pieces, and then when we played them in the FA Cup, we actually beat them because they couldn't do the set piece thing on us. And obviously I know it went to penalties in the end, but maybe there's a similarity there where they can sort of take sort of pride from the fact that in open play, this United were arguably the better team.
And I think there's sort of. So United have only beaten Chelsea once in the women's game, never in the league.
That's not good, is it?
No, so you do have to consider that, like, when we say the women's team have never beaten someone, they've only been playing against Chelsea since the 2019-20 season. Yeah. So we're talking about 5 seasons. We're talking about, I would guess, about a dozen games.
Yeah.
The only time that they've beaten them was in the FA Cup semi-final last year to reach the final, which they then won. So United do know that they can beat Chelsea, and I would argue that the performance in which they just lost 1-0 was actually a better performance than that one in the semi-final. So United are going into it as underdogs, but it is like, I think they can go into it with a real belief that if they play their best game, they can absolutely get the title out of it.
So talk me through some of the key players for United, for Chelsea. Who's going to make the difference?
So Fallon Tullis-Joyce, to kind of start at the back, is United's goalkeeper. It's been her first kind of season in the number 1 shirt. People might have heard of Mary Earps, obviously the Lionesses keeper, who left at the end of last season. So Fallon had kind of massive shoes to fill in that sense. And I kind of can't emphasise enough how exceptional and how important she's been.
Where did she come from? Did we sign her? Was she from the academy?
She's American. We signed her for what I think at the time was a world record fee for a women's goalkeeper, but she still kept playing backup. She kind of barely made any appearances, so
that's weird.
People were a bit kind of confused as to what the plan was, but then she immediately stepped up into Earps' shoes this season and has just taken it brilliant. Has been fantastic. Joint Golden Glove winner. She's made literally one significant error that I can think of. So she's been absolutely exceptional. She pulled up, you'll find if you go on Twitter, a clip of a triple save against Man City in the FA Cup semi-final. She's absolutely brilliant. So Fallon definitely is kind of one to watch out for. I think also the captain, Maya Letizia, she's no relation to Matt, by the way. She's 22.
I think she'll be grateful of that.
Taken the armband this year and been part of United having one of the best defensive records in the league. So she's been absolutely fantastic, a real kind of leader, even at such a young age. Obviously, people might know Ella Toon's probably one of the names I don't have to tell you about as much. Yeah. I would also say Grace Clinton, another Lioness who will be probably in the midfield, really skillful, technical, some excellent kind of shooting technique at times, linking up as well on the right with Celine Bizet, who's our right winger, who again was a new signing this season and has really just taken it by storm with how immediately she's come in, contributed, works really hard up and down the right wing defensively too, which is going to be key because our first choice right back is unfortunately out injured.
Okay.
And then the striker Elizabeth Turland, again joined from Brighton last summer. So the recruitment last summer. I was
going to say it sounds like a lot of
it was really strong. It was a really strong window in terms of recruitment because I think that is something United have been criticised for in the past. But yeah, she's had a really strong season up top. Is sort of very physical, good hold up play, good link up with the wingers. So yeah, we've got some really good names in there. Unfortunately, Chelsea do as well.
Yeah, well, give me a couple of the sort of star players for Chelsea. Is it just everyone?
That's what's really hard. I actually spoke to Sonia Bumpasta spoke to the media about this after they won the league. So I was in that press conference, which is a funny feeling as a journalist, but also as a fan. You sat there having just watched them win the league against your team. But
not too fun, is it?
Yeah, but she was basically saying like there is no star player in this side, but you can pick out a lot of Erin Cuthbert in midfield is exceptional. Joanna Ritting-Kanerud is an amazing forward, pulls off some just unbelievable pace, unbelievable striking ability. They're sort of, not necessarily wing-backs, but kind of flying full-backs, if you like. Sandy Baltimore, really good player. So there's going to be so much talent on this pitch. And Chelsea are an incredibly difficult side to beat. No English team has done it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I think United do know that they can. It's just whether... and hearing from Mark Skinner this morning, or on Friday morning, he was saying, we have to be prepared to go a goal down, and then how do we respond to that?
Yeah.
So it should be a really interesting game.
Very exciting. Just to remind anyone, what time is it on? Where can people watch it as well?
1:30. This is actually really bad, but because I'm going, I haven't even looked at what channel it's on. But it will be on free to air. Yeah. It'll be either BBC or ITV.
Okay, great.
But yeah, it'll be on free to air. Kickoffs at 1:30.
Oh, exciting! Right, prediction. Come on, how's it going to go?
I'm going to say it's going to be 1-1. It's going to go to extra time, and then United are going to nick it in extra time.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to make a prediction as well, even though. All I know about it is what you've just told me. I think we'll 2-1. I think we'll go down and I think we'll win. Like Skinner said himself.
Well, there we go.
There we go. Right, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you check out Cerys. We'll put her socials in the description as well. Thank you for joining us at home. We'll see you in a bit.